Here we have kind of a gross chain rule problem because there's going to be a lot of square roots in play here. I'm going to take the derivative of this expression here, keeping in mind that this might be a derivative rule you don't know yet. The derivative of inverse sine of x is 1 over the square root of 1 minus x squared. So I'm going to use that rule as I tackle this problem. The derivative of 2 inverse sine would be 2 times 1 over the square root of 1 minus. Normally I would say x squared, but x is whatever is inside this parenthesis. So in this case, x over 2 is inside that parenthesis, x over 2 squared. We mustn't forget that the derivative of the inside needs to be tacked on because this is the chain rule. So chain rule says you must take the derivative of that inside function. X over 2's derivative is 1 over 2. And then we're going to move on to square root of 4 minus x squared. Before I do that, I'm going to encourage you to rewrite this as, let's get rid of this radical and say to the 1/2. So 4 minus x squared to the 1/2 is what I'm taking the derivative of. This 1/2 will come down in front, times 4 minus x squared now to the power of negative 1/2 via power rule. And then again, chain rule kicks in and says, did you have an inside function? We sure did. The derivative of 4 minus x squared is negative 2x. I'm going to say times negative 2x there. And now it's time for cleanup. This looks like a giant mess. This is the hardest part of the problem, really, is kind of fixing everything down here. So I'm going to do a bunch of stuff in this next line. I'm going to say 1 minus x over 2 squared gives me x squared over 4. There's a times a 1/2 here. So you know what? This times 1/2 will cancel that 2. So that 2 is gone. I also have a 1/2 and a negative 2 here. So that 2 and that 1/2 cancel, but I will take the negative and bring it over here. So I have minus x divided by square root of 4 minus x squared. Now, so as to make sure you guys didn't get lost by what I did there, I just decided to rewrite 4 minus x squared to the negative 1/2 as a radical in the bottom. This means 1 over the square root of whatever you see there, that negative 1/2 power. So I rewrote it like that. I'm almost out of the woods. I can do a few things to clean this up a bit more. Notice that 1 does not have a denominator while 4 does, or this 4 sits in the denominator of the x squared. So I'm going to get a common denominator here. I'm going to go ahead and say this is 4 over 4. I went ahead and rewrote that 1 as 4 over 4. I can then take out this 4 out through the radical, and it's going to be 1 over 1/2 square root of 4 minus x squared. I basically said to myself, there's a 4 down there, square root of 4 is 2, but that 2 is really in the denominator, so it's really a 1/2. That's a lot to keep in mind. Okay, that 1/2 will flip to the top, so I can, instead of saying 1 over 1/2, I can just call it 2 on the top, and then I have minus x over the square root of 4 minus x squared. Almost out of the woods. Actually, we're pretty much done. I just want to say, let's clean this up a little bit more and say, you know what, we can call this 2 minus x over square root of 4 minus x squared because they share the same denominator.